Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. I'm here. No better place to be than in the Shadow Gallery with my friend Harley. We're going to be talking about Image 30-year anniversary. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about Image Comics?
Image Comics, probably Eric Larsen for me, because, I don't know, of all the dudes, for whatever reason, I kind of glommed onto Eric Larsen strongly.
I think that's a good choice. For me, it's Todd McFarlane's Spawn. I'm just instantly, when I think of Image Comics, I think of Spawn. So we're going to take a little trip down memory lane back to 1992, talk about the comics we were reading. Why don't we start with our pick that we both brought? So we both brought our copies of Savage Dragon, first issue. So I think that's cool that we both grabbed our Eric Larsen and brought those to the table.
Oh, dude, yeah. Like I said, he's definitely a very influential part of my art style, and I don't know, always one of my favorite letter columns too. He was very responsive to his fan base and kind of a weirdo.
One thing that we were talking about Eric Larsen, he's not someone who's trying to do this perfect anatomy. He's someone who every time he does a cover, he just puts the energy on the page.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he's so prolific and does so many covers.
Well, and also, I don't know how he's able to, continue to just, he's got 300 issues of Savage Dragon out now. I mean, definitely up there the same way that, Todd McFarlane's up there, but, not to throw shade at Todd, but, Eric Larsen wrote, drew, inked, did the whole damn shebang. And, the Todd father is only, rocking the definitely covers and
I feel
whatever.
You might be looking at this and thinking, wow, this looks so strange because he's got the spikes on his head, but it's kind of set as a gritty, realistic kind of, I don't know, it's over the top in many ways. But the fact that it's centered around police officers, so many times your superhero, comes from Krypton or some, crazy thing like that. But he's a cop, right? Mm-hmm. So give us a little run. Maybe we could open it up and we could talk a little bit about Savage Dragon.
Well, flip through, see some examples of some interiors, and get a little action on the screen here.
I know they don't want to just hear us talk; they want to see some stuff. Yeah. So, I think this was the one I brought, right? Okay, so we're starting right out here. Baptism of Fire. Again, you're not looking at this to think what is the most realistic pose. Look at the action we've got right here.
It's still and also, the coloring thing is a big issue of, the difference between Image Comics and Marvel of the same era.
Right.
And even just opening up that first page, but this one specifically,
this first
too,
splash page.
Holy crap. Definitely much different than, anything that we'd seen to that point. And, oh man, I'm seeing the Jim Rugg definitely rocks some Eric Larsen lettering sometimes with his stuff. She's probably maybe even Walter Simonson or something like that.
It's a little Kafka-esque. I like the long letters. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And what else can we say about the coloring? Because I think you're totally right.
Well, it's just the beginning stages of computer coloring with these gradients and shit like that, and that kind of stuff wouldn't necessarily be happening in the same way with with colors.
And when you say that, it's it's full color digital printing. So not necessarily this still could have been done by hand, but they have the ability to print the gradient in a way they couldn't before. Am I right about that?
Yeah. So,
so instead of being color separated, where all you would have is, cyan, magenta, yellow, and you have to use combinations and using a really fine dot pattern. Suddenly you could have all the colors of the rainbow on the page.
So this is 92. was January of '92. I
Oh,
thought
okay.
it was a '91 because it said on the cover '91.
Well, we can let's break from Savage Dragon. We'll keep.
Oh, I
going
just
through
wanted
this.
to do a little quick comparison
Yeah,
of colors
let's go ahead and
because,
take
like,
a look at that. Yeah.
like even just the first page of Wolverine, you can see the difference between like.
Let's go ahead and put it up here. So, what I call, from animation, I'm usually calling this, like spot shading. You are getting a little bit of gradation there on his leg, but if you look at her leg, you can see that the shadow is completely separated into its own shape. And that's what we've been used to seeing.
Totally.
Up until this era.
that's. It's a tricky thing to like distinguish between. I guess for the layman or whatever, but yeah, I definitely can tell the difference, and also the process that is going.
Okay, and
forward
so
to-
we're looking at Eric Larsen right here.
Well, this right here is actually Mark Silvestri.
Okay,
he's
that's
another
what I was
one
going to
that-
say. Okay, this is what I'm more used to seeing from some of the other image artists.
So, yeah, this is the guy that wound up going on to Cyberforce.
Mark Silvestri has
Yeah.
that kind of what I think of as like the Image House style that Jim Lee was really good at.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think part of it is the way that they do shading, whereas Larson will get in here with, see this really heavy cross hatching? He is, and he'll do different things on one page, which is, in a way, it's almost looser. He's kind of just throwing the energy where it needs to be.
Totally.
Whereas I think a lot of everyone from who came after Jim Lee too, like Brandon Choi, Scott Williams, they had this really, really fine approach. Everything was like so soft and subtle and
yeah. There's definitely something to be said about that, and I would even say that like Silvestri in this, like he's definitely still kind of his old X-Men style. Like it's still pretty chunky, still kind of like still fairly like check out these.
Let's go ahead and turn that here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the back of Wolverine's arm here. I mean, this is just, it's got those thick shadows, but it's also got the really detailed
So, and I think
blending.
this is probably Dan Green inking it too.
That does make a big difference too. So
yeah, Dan Green. So, he was definitely like the same artist team that used to be on X-Men before Jim Lee took over. Because Silvestri was actually on
love
X-Men.
this Wolvie on the bike here.
Yeah.
Oh, but this is worth saying too. I am a huge Wolverine fan. I've always thought Wolverine was the coolest. Maybe it's a little cliche because he's so many people's favorite. But
mean-
it was because he was rough around the edges, and we didn't mention it, but I'm pretty sure the X-Men cartoon was just hitting the airwaves around this time too.
I feel like it must have been, but like part of me is like questioning that.
Might
like
be later.
I
think we were just exposed to more media than we knew when we were that young.
Yeah.
But maybe it was even just in production and it hadn't happened yet. Because and then it's worth stating. So let's go through. We've already got two of our Image founders that have come up. So we've got Eric Larsen, Mark Silvestri. I mentioned Jim Lee. We don't want to forget Mark Silvestri.
Well, Todd McFarlane, Mark
Todd McFarlane.
Silvestri. I have
Will
another one
Portasio
here
and Jim Valentino.
in Shadowhawk, which
Aha.
was Jim Valentino's
I'm
entry
glad you have
into
this.
it.
Yes.
And he's, for whatever reason, people. Well, I mean, I guess his talents are a little bit lesser than maybe Todd McFarlane's or Jim Lee's or whatever, but like he's a great storyteller. That's definitely something to be said about Mr. Jim.
Okay.
And
then Will Portasio, what was his book? Did he start out with?
his was Uncanny X-Men and X Factor.
But then for did he have his own Image book that he
It
started?
was Wetworks.
Okay, Wetworks.
Wetworks
This-
was like the one that was delayed for like a million years, and he never. Yeah.
I have a copy of the first two issues of Wetworks, and that would have been his entry. And so all of these guys came from Marvel, correct? Did they all meet in the Marvel Studios?
Well, yeah, I think. I mean, some of them worked for DC for a little bit. Todd McFarlane did some stuff at DC. Eric Larsen did some stuff at DC. He did Doom Patrol there for a little while.
We forgot Rob Liefeld.
Rob Liefeld, Youngblood, shit, dude. He's like kind of one of the OGs. Like,
yeah.
Basically,
he was so young when he was
like
too.
He was making the comic, and like he was initially going to call it the Executioners. And they got all pissy about it and we're going to like sue him, and then he changed it to Youngblood, and then he's like, well, I'm going to still work on this. I'm going to make this book but still work on X-Men. And they're like, what? No. Nuh-uh. And so like, you know, they basically just kind of like forced him out. And so like at that point, you know, he was kind of holding the bag a little bit, and so like they decided to, and also, you know, mega famous. Yeah. So like they're just like, dude, let's make this happen. And Todd McFarlane came out of retirement. Like he had apparently like
he was so burned off of his time at Marvel. So that's amazing, because the way that I think of it is Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, maybe Mark Silvestri a bit.
I was actually
were the hottest artists of the day.
So actually,
and that's why they could
in the back here.
Yeah.
This
Jim Lee.
Lovely. Oh, there's some glare there. Yeah. This freaking Jim Lee image, man. That is like, I had that on T-shirt that I had probably not very long after this came out, and having merchandise with shit on it back then was different. Yeah. And, like, I probably had some mail order horse shit that I had to go through to get it too.
Well, so okay, I think but I'm just trying to just throw it out there that for me, the reason they could step to Marvel and say we're leaving and we're starting our own publisher. I love the ads.
Yeah, that's part of the fun. Just like flip through there. And
this is Jim Lee's work on. Oh, this is Mark Silvestri.
This is still
again.
This is Silvestri.
Like I said, they have a very similar. It's not cross hatching, but the way that they do their shadows with the just horizontal lines is really admirable. Love it. It works really well with the way they were coloring at that time.
They like glossed up their pages for the ads in the middle of it.
Ew. Oh, Castlevania.
That's so weird. That's the trippy shit that you don't notice when you're a kid, but when you're an adult, you're like, wow, they changed up the paper quality for their ads.
So my thing is, I was from a small town where we didn't have a comic shop. So I would get comics very rarely, and I just cherished them. Like, my collection was small, but the books that I had, I just read them over and over. So looking back at some of these, it's like I memorized the ads, you know? It's like it all brings back memories.
For sure, dude. Like, in fact, there's movies that I am still kind of like trying to find just because I saw an ad for it, like on the back of a comic book a million years ago. And just like, I am curious about it just for that purpose.
So these guys were legends of comics, and they were doing all of this work. See, there's the shirt.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like I totally had... Fuck.
If we could go back in time and order these...
Yeah, this right here, dude. This all-over shirt. Yeah. Or no, maybe not. There was like a...
For its day, these were really catchy. Look at these Ghost Rider's flames all over here.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to just shout out the fact that these guys were the legends of art. And then they said, hey, guess what? We can go create our own books. So the whole founding of Image was the idea that you can do a create your own book. And that planted a seed in my head, which it was almost like an unattainable goal. In a certain ways, these guys were in a primo position to do this in a way that no one else could ever pull it off the way they pulled it off. I mean, it's a bold statement, but they were like the superstar kings of art, and they got to do this create our own stuff. So let me switch up to another little thing I've got here. So I brought, this is Revenge of the Sinister Six.
Yeah.
So these are all covers by Eric Larsen.
That's all interiors by Eric Larsen too.
So I typically think of Todd McFarlane as the Spider-Man guy, but take a look at all these covers by Eric Larsen. we're not going to go into them, but it would be really
Dude,
cool.
Yeah, that's actually
read through
a
these.
great run. Like, that's one of my, like, I think this one might have been one of my first re-entries into, like, buying comics regularly.
And yeah, okay.
Because, yeah, this is part 1, and I saw that it was part 1, and I'm like, okay. And freaking Ghost Rider was in it, and I had actually just probably got Amazing Spider-Man 350. Not very, because this is freaking January, man. The timeline, it's linking up, dude. Because like I'm pretty sure it was December of '91, and I was up in North Carolina, and I remember like the scenery was like, I got it at like a Walden Books in North Carolina, I think, was that 350. And I feel so crappy that I don't have it now, because it's like, that's a pivotal issue for me now.
Okay.
And like,
right. Amazing 350.
Yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 350. It's kind of like a nothing story. Like, it's got the like gray fox or something, like this old man jewel thief guy. Okay. But like, he frickin' steals a jewel from Dr. Doom.
Oh,
and
right.
like pisses him the fuck off. And like, so Spider-Man's
sets
trying
off a whole new set of
Spider-Man's basically trying to protect this old man from getting killed by Dr. Doom the whole time. And like seeing like Spider-Man, like, he's not very good at fighting somebody as bad as Dr. Doom, but like also trying to like, you know, save this dude that like he did fuck up. And like I'm all like cussing, whatever. But anyway,
that's cool.
We'll have to be.
Well, okay. But just to bringing it all back around, this is Spider-Man with Ghost Rider.
But yeah,
is people are talking about the new Fantastic Four that's about to drop. And so there was an era where I think it might have even been a what if.
And actually, I was gonna try to look those up. Those
Ghost Rider.
It was
Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the Hulk as the Fantastic Four. So
and it was Art Adams.
If you go to, I have this issue of Ages of Apocalypse, drawn by Roger Cruz, who's another like really talented Brazilian artist. He's got this issue that I just read, and Dr. Doom is in that. But as soon as they defeat him and rip off his mask, it turns out it's a bot. Doom, it's some sort of Dr. Doom clone robot.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh man, how many Dr. Dooms are we going to have to face? And that's like, you know, that's just a little hint for that. So that's
Doom
why I wanted to throw this out here, because this is once again Eric Larsen right before starting Image and kind of leaving Marvel for a time. This is the stuff that he was doing. So these guys, like I said, to me they were like kings of the industry. And look, is this Deathlock here in this issue? This is the Sinister Six conclusion, and then this is, I'm pretty sure this is comes up pretty soon after that, or maybe
no, this is
in the
part,
middle.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
he
part
like 6. Wakes up and he's got that arm. He's like,
yeah.
It's such a great image. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if this is. I think I'm missing part 5. So if anyone has part 5, that'd be cool.
All right.
So okay, this is the conclusion. Yeah, I think I'm just missing part 5 in the middle. I grabbed these comics recently, and,
cool.
and I just That's why I love digging through the bargain bins, because you never know what you're gonna find.
Totally.
And then sometimes you can snag something totally awesome. And then for me, it's just like, I see Eric Larsen and I gotta have it. So here's another fun connection we can make here. This I got signed when I was at the San Francisco Comic Con.
Oh, nice.
And I see Eric Larsen sitting over there, and I'm like, fuck, I don't have an Eric Larsen book. So I go over and I dig through the bins until I find this, and I go. It was like right across from him too, so he might have even seen me like going for his cover. And the reason I like this one is because I love to put it side by side. This is I usually think of Todd when I think of Spider-Man. So there's when they rewrite, was Amazing still going on when they said, hey, we're going to do Spider-Man #1?
Mm-hmm.
So this,
yeah. Todd was doing so well that, you know, they wanted to launch another Spider-Man title, and
give it to him. Did he write it too? Or
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Cool. I mean, and then are we looking at the symbiote suit here? Is this?
Yeah. That's well, I mean, it's probably just the black suit because like at that point Venom had taken off, because this is the whatever I don't know, post 90 is this 90 91? Yeah, 90.
So again, we're right in there, like this is right before the launch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was just kind of wrapping up his run on this Spider-Man. Like, I think 16 was the last issue that he did of that Spider-Man, and it was the Sideways issue with X-Force.
Oh,
and
okay.
That's the one. Actually, there's like an image with like Shatterstar and Juggernaut that gets edited out.
Oh, okay.
And he was so pissed off about it that I think that was another big like reason for him to step away.
Didn't like the editorial decisions on his books.
Yeah. And well, I mean, once you're making so much money for someone and then have your stuff get jerked around with, like, for no other reason than like we really don't want to step on the toes of the comics code still, right, after all these years. Yeah. And like that was kind of that was his like, screw this, man. Final or at least that's what I would take it as.
He had to have had Spawn cooking in the background.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, all it took was Rob Liefeld also getting kind of jerked around by, Marvel, and they're like, no, you can't do a book here and a book there. Are you crazy?
Right.
Who do you think you are?
Well, okay, while we're going down this road, I think, too, Rob Liefeld, maybe he's not doing like Rembrandt anatomically correct kind of, thing, but so much energy. And I think what these artists were showing was like, an artist can sell the book. I mean, you could swap the writer.
Absolutely.
In and out,
well, I mean, that was
it just because those artists were attached to
the Image comic name is right there. Like, it's all about the images. Like, this is not story comics.
Well, okay. Well, Todd McFarlane too. It's like love him or hate him. He went on to do toys. He went on to do the Spawn video game, which I had. It might have come out on the Super Nintendo right around the launch. I don't know when that 93, 94 like came out pretty quickly after Spawn was. But then boom, this Spawn #1. That's worth throwing down. What do you think about when all of the recreations of these covers? Because this Spider-Man in this pose, I've seen all these tributes done. They just did another one, like the new Spawn title had a tribute to that, just the last issue.
I know.
And then here's
he loves it. Yeah.
I've seen this one done a few times too.
And actually, there's like a Red Room cover that like Jim Rugg. I keep name dropping Jim Rugg, but like those kayfabe dudes are definitely killing it. So
did they do a
shout out kayfabe?
Dude. I know. Well, I know. Hip Hop Family Tree is one of my all-time favorites of all. So, Spawn #1 is what they did in the Red Room, or the Spider-Man pose.
No, it's actually Jim Rugg did this whole image, and it's got Red Room in the Spawn font. It's a variant cover, and kind of bummed me out because like I was hoping that the trade. I'm calling you out, Ed. Hoping that the trade would have the variant covers inside the trade.
That's a perk. When you get that, it's great.
You'd think so, right? Well, I mean, come on, dude.
I've got some trades, and they have those. They have the covers.
Yeah. But anyway, On to other non-whining things. What do we got?
Well, okay,
We got
I think
overkill.
I was gonna say this Spawn right here. You can see how clean and sharp this costume is compared to like when we get Spawn without the mask later, where he's stitched up and he's just like almost grotesque, and like, and when I think of why I love Spawn, it's for that grittiness, and that could have been something that like Tony Daniel or Greg Capullo like brought into the mix. But Todd definitely had a really sharp. I think the costume changed and he ended up with more spikes on one of these arms.
Oh yeah,
and lost the red. He lost the red on the costume. It ended up becoming all black.
I mean, he still had a fair amount of red. I mean, he definitely had the big ass red cape. But I have to say that like Spawn, of all of the dudes, like. I liked seeing it here and there, but it was kind of like it was like the Metalhead comic or something, Like I was just kind of I don't know, maybe more of just like about it, like at that point already.
Well, and I think I didn't pick up number 1. I think I hopped on around number 6. Yeah, so here's Overkill. I really like this story because this is the moment where Spawn realizes, man, I'm wasting all of my energy. Why don't I get some guns?
Yeah.
And then here's this great crossover with Cerebus. This one, it gets really cerebral, and he goes into the Hall of Heroes. Actually, I'll just open this up because there's this one shot where
is that the one where he's got the like arm by the jail cell or whatever?
He's going through, and it's this this kind of Superman figure, and kind of dealing with. Like, what does it mean to be in the superhero world? So it's just this total fourth wall breaking thing. And as a young kid, I think for me, this is the first time someone really like broke the fourth wall really hard
for
on
sure.
me. And
is this Alan Moore or something? Who is?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. This. No, Dave Sim.
Okay, Dave Sim of Cerebus fame.
That's still cool. Yeah.
And so this was a mind blower, and then. People who maybe don't know, like Spawn got his powers by going to the depths of hell. It felt like something that you maybe hadn't seen before. There'd been some pretty dark stuff in comics before then, but it seemed really heavy. There's the issue
they're
with
also
Violator.
Not fucking with the code because they knew that was like something that barely anybody gave a shit about anymore. So like.
Well, okay, and then there was the issue that I never had, but the Violator, the clown, where he's mutilating children, and it's just like it was like I remember going to my friend's house and like reading that like secretly, and like it was just so horrifying.
I do remember when that came out, and I was like particularly like, oh man, I gotta hide this one because there's like at some point he shoots a guy in the mouth. And then, like, at the process of, like, killing the guy, he gets, like, the guy's head stuck on his arm. And so he just winds up, like, ripping the guy's head off. And then he's just got the guy's head on his arm.
Yeah, when he's in clown form at that point. Yeah, and then, like, we see that he's actually this crazy horned beast. Like, a little funny thing about that is my dad still has this Violator toy on his shelf because my dad's a knick-knack kind of guy. He always collects these things from his world travels. You're seeing like African masks and like things from the Hopi Indians. Then bam, he's got this Violator statue. I'll just throw a nod to this one too. Spawn versus Spawn Batman. Frank Miller, Todd McFarlane.
A little later in the evolution of both of them, but definitely a cool
something that I treasure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on from Spawn, and where do we go to next?
Well, I got some other 92s. We've dropped a few from that era.
Yeah.
So like we were talking about Rob. We don't have Youngblood, but I do have an X-Force issue here, and well, there's kind of a cool one that they were talking about on.
Oh, good. Yeah, show us some X-Force because you said Liefeld, I say Liefeld. I pronounce all of the names wrong, like Greg Capullo. I like to just do it like like a chicken, like the
Capullo.
Spanish
Yeah.
style. But must be Italian.
Yeah, I think it's just like Capullo or, you know.
Capullo, yeah.
Capullo.
What's the matter with you, huh?
So
Anyway,
this is actually
sorry,
like only the cover and like maybe the first few pages are Liefeld. This has got Mike Mignola art in it.
Interesting.
And like
and we would know
Ed
him
Piskor,
from Hellboy, right?
Yeah. And Ed Piskor actually like fucking brings this one up as like whenever he was reading it as a kid, like it just like kind of, you know, well,
he probably
he
didn't
saw
like
it and he was like,
first.
"What the hell is this crap?"
Yeah, I'm telling you.
And sure enough, like when I was a kid, I was also kind of in the same way, but also kind of like, man, I like this. I don't know what it is about it, but like, kind of cool.
I would always. It wouldn't matter if the art wasn't as good. If art ever switched, I got disappointed.
Right.
I could just picture them like saying, "Oh, we gotta have this done in a week. Get this other guy in here. You're taking too long."
No. I mean,
this is
that's exactly what it is. But yeah, this is. I think it's meant to be like telling.
Well, let's go to some of these action poses. So even those figures that we were seeing that were smaller, like you could really see.
Let's see.
He's got this brilliance of where he's simplifying the form, and it's got those bold shadows, right? That's what pops out, and like using those solid blacks. You know, you weren't seeing that from the hot guys. So if Jim Lee and Liefeld were the hot item, they were not doing solid black shadows. They were getting as much line work,
getting all kinds of crazy hatch shit in there. Yeah, look, there's an ad for Youngblood right there in the
Marvel
X-Force.
comic.
So
hey, that's good.
Just
good work,
about
guys.
to happen.
Wow, so this is 1992. Well, you know, and I realized I didn't start picking up Wizard magazine
that's a
until
dope cable right there, though.
I just did a video where I went through my Wizard from 1995 and just pointed out all of the image.
So got some Liefelds.
And look at the lines on here. It's like almost over the top.
Stark contrast.
Almost over the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So he does the last page and the first page. Wow. And look at this, Terminator 2 on Game Boy, folks. That's what.
Oh yeah, let's shout out some of these ads back here too. We got some. Oh yeah, trading cards. That was another big.
So
big
right
thing
around
back
this
then.
time was when I had a friend who.
One of the things that I was thinking about bringing out was a big set of Marvel cards. That
So
I've got.
okay, the Marvels, what series came out in 1992? Because that was the one that
I think
ended up.
92 is the second set.
So that series, it was because by the third,
So I
I
think
didn't
the
really.
second set is that one.
Okay, by the third set.
Oh no, that is 91. So
91 was the set
Damn.
that I had in its
Okay.
entirety.
Yeah.
And it was because I had a friend who got the whole set, just huge bundle of them, and I traded my entire baseball card collection to my friend. It was like, you want my baseball cards and I can have these Marvel cards? And I gave him, I was already trading him like, he really liked Bo Jackson. And I really liked Will Clark of the Giants, and I would trade him Bo Jacksons for Will Clarks. But then he showed up with the Marvel cards, and I gave him my whole collection just to take the baseball cards.
Screw this, I'm done.
Yeah.
So here's another image dude that definitely, he's probably like the biggest guy out of the group. Well, I don't know. I guess Todd McFarlane's pretty big, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, Jim Lee, I mean, he's like the big daddy over at DC now, I think, or at least like one of the big guys over there, which is
that's
such
what's
a weird
interesting.
thing.
That so from Marvel to Image and then to DC, and then he ends up selling Wildstorm to DC.
Yeah,
and the rights to all those characters that go along with it. So the reason it's really good to point out Jim Lee is for my artistic influences. I was just always stunned. I thought his stuff was beautiful.
Yeah,
and I think there's a kind of sentiment that would think of Mignola as like a really accomplished comic book artist, and maybe not respect Jim Lee and Liefeld and Larsen, the guys who are kind of doing the more cross-hatched, style that is actually what I fell in love with the whole time.
Yeah.
What would you say? It's almost like you just call it the Image style or like the early 90s look.
I guess, I don't know. Like, I mean, there's definitely a lot of people that like, Scott Williams was the inker for Jim Lee, and like, arguably, it's kind of the Scott Williams style is like really what people are doing, because like,
because how
like,
you ink it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I mean, Silvestri winds up kind of changing his style to be more like Jim Lee's style or Rob Liefeld's style, with the like heavy, like,
well, and that's funny because
like, I was even talking about it, even in this one, the stuff is almost kind of more like Mignola.
Well, and then just to shout out, so here's another artist who kind of falls in that line. Brett Booth ends up kind of adopting that style.
Yeah, or right here, this is a 92 book of X-Men with Art T-Bear, who is, replacing Jim Lee with, I mean, obviously he's very much trying to ape his style.
Yeah.
So,
well,
like,
and we can see see this kind of hatching that's really spread out, and also it's not cross hatching as much as like feathering. It's kind of like a feathering effect. Here's one for Wildcats that I thought I would bring in too. So like you can see the artists who were coming in on the books were often the people who fit in the style of the creator.
Oh yeah.
Who started that title. Here's another one, like Alan Moore at this time was coming in and writing a lot of stories for Image because he had been totally burned by DC Comics.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a whole story with Alan Moore and actually part of that was that he was doing Wildstorm stuff for Jim Lee, and they ended up going back to DC after Alan Moore had swore he would never work.
It's rough, DC. Man. Can't get away.
Well, while we're on the kind of just talking about the art style and stuff, Michael Turner, there's another artist who was working for Image under Top Cow, which was Mark Silvestri's imprint. Michael Turner, he ended up passing away like way too young.
Oh wow. I think damn, I forgot about that.
Yeah, he passed away way too young, but he was amazing, and he did. I think it's safe to say Image Comics in the way they did their women, right? There was like the Image Comics babe kind of. Well,
yeah, they were very early on in the bad girl movement,
right?
That was definitely another part of the 90s thing.
So, and then you can see Michael Turner, like, the way he's doing these women's faces and the eyes was like his real quintessential style. And then Witchblade, I would say when I think of Mark Silvestri's titles, I think of The Darkness, and I think of Witchblade as being like, indicative of the Top Cow style.
Those were the ones that, definitely took things up a notch for him.
Oh, and then, boom, look at that digital coloring. This is a good one for people to take note of. The peach and the purple makes a really nice combo there.
Yeah.
So
that's, several years down the line for Image, but also, definitely another good example.
And then Michael Turner got to do this Fathom because he ends up getting his own creator-owned book. And so we see other artists like Brett Booth
Aspen
coming in and doing stuff.
So this is a 92er here. This is, actually, is it? No, that's another one where it's weird, where they have a 91 on the cover, but the February 92 issue. So it might have actually delivered in 91. I don't know how that actually works. But anyway,
right in the sweet spot.
This is also
sweet pre-Image. You're really giving us the stuff that led up to Image.
This is leading to Image Comics, and it's also another Image dude. This is Larry Stroman. He winds up doing Tribe, which is like another one of the. It's kind of like the second gen of the Image books or whatever. But another kind of cool singular artist of the time period who, hopped out with all of the other guys that were, artistically interesting in the time period. And I mean, same thing like
I love these poses. These are really great.
Yeah, he had a really cool, like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, just
you see, it's a blend of the Mignola and Jim Lee style, right? Because he has that subtle hatching, but he also is using these really bold shadows, right?
Yeah.
Which my thing is like
look at that, Mr.
Lines
Sinister
are
right
great,
there.
but lines are only as good as the shapes that they're indicating, right? So it's like you have to be an artist. You have to think about shape before line, and these shapes of these figures are just so popping.
Yeah.
That's great.
Let's see, who else we got from this time period? Oh,
All
I thought
new,
this
all
one might
different.
be an interesting one to pop out just because there's a movie coming out soon, and it was also a 92 book,
yeah.
and like Ghost Rider had a lot of hotness attached to him, so like anything in that related sphere was kind of giving a little bit more clearance. So Morbius and like Johnny Blaze had another comic, and like I think Hellstrom, the son of Satan, had like a reboot and shit like that too. But
because everything had to be edgy and cool. This was the 90s.
it's interesting.
And this is Wagner.
So
92
the
right
30th anniversary for the Hulk was 30 years ago. So the 60th is coming up.
Okay, so that's
a
cool little bookend there.
Keep bringing up the kayfabe boys, but Jim Rugg has got the Hulk
the grand design
coming out, and well, I'm doing their job for them or whatever.
Well, I like this idea of helping people on board, because the continuity of comics spans decades and decades, and people get so burnt out by these different crises, these world-splitting events.
Yeah.
And I think to give new readers, think about all the kids trying to get into comics now. Where should they start?
Totally.
And so if you can get the whole synopsis,
it's cool.
Why not?
Yeah, and I don't know. I got a lot of love for those guys. Like, they're very much. Well, they definitely brought me back into my appreciation for comics and also making art.
You're reminding me right here that I had a cool Morbius comic that I don't know what happened to it. I wonder how many books like bit the dust where like you don't know, you loaned it to a friend or it just like slipped through the cracks.
This was another one I wish that I had. Well, I've got them somewhere else, but Guardians of the Galaxy of that time period. When people think of Guardians of the Galaxy, like they think like Peter Quill and like Drax and like that.
Right.
So whenever that was coming out, I was like, that's none of the Guardians of the Galaxy that I know. So so it's interesting. And this is this is at the Jim Valentino had done issues like pretty much, I don't know, I think till like 26 or something like that. So I was still getting issues at this point.
Okay.
But he was that was the comic that he was doing before he jumped ship and went over to Image. Gotcha. So that's why I brought this out. Because even they are aping Jim Valentino.
Right.
So that's a trip. But I mean, you're gonna go with the successful styles for your book.
I know, and this kind of fits into like the kind of almost like a golden age kind of feel. The way, at least on this cover, we don't have the Eric Larsen like in your face angles on these, and that's just kind of like reminding me of like the era.
Yeah. Valentino was a lot more of a traditional kind of like storyteller, though. His stuff wasn't nearly as cray. So here's a Ghost Rider. I was bringing up all those kind of like
this
books
is good.
from that time period.
Let's sit in this time period. Yeah. Well, like I said, I didn't have access to books. So it would be like I would grab one if I could. We called it going over the hill because we were such country bums. Like you'd have to drive over the mountain an hour before you'd get to a comic shop.
Yeah.
And so it was like. The characters that I knew, X-Men really stood out to me right off the bat, and then of course, I grew up with all kind of DC heroes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Kind of ubiquitous stuff. But Ghost Rider, so cool.
Oh yeah, Flaming Skull. Come on. Yeah. I think it was probably actually like the first issue of Wizard that I saw that was actually what got me to like be interested in Ghost Rider, which means like this was well after he had been established, but just the image of him on that was like so. It was either Jusko or Nelson. They were both like, do you know who I'm talking about? Those they did a lot of cover paintings and shit back in the time period.
Jusko, I do
Joe,
know.
yeah, Joe Jusko, and oh yeah, this was that Wildcats one.
Okay, and then this is another thing that's coming to my mind. I don't think Todd McFarlane ever worked on Ghost Rider, but if you look at the spikes that he's got and the chain, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like he was somewhat inspired, and that's probably why you thought of Spawn as like the metal book, because it's pretty rock and roll to be having chains and spikes on your character.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's totally like, I mean, Spawn is very much like, Ghost Rider was very popular at that time period, and so like he's probably just snatching little flavors from Ghost Rider and little bit of Batman, a little bit of Spider-Man, a little bit of Ghost Rider.
So I just learned this new term, headcanon, right? So when you come up with your own theories for characters in your head, and I definitely had some Ghost Rider headcanon because I never really knew what his story was. But I'm also like thinking of Lobo. Lobo, I'm not sure when I actually learned about Lobo, but
so this
he's
is
another
a
hook and chain kind of tough guy.
Fun one from the time period.
Yeah.
Just like a whole crossover event series that DC was having. I figure we're giving a lot of Marvel love and whatnot. I might as well throw this in
Many
there too.
Faces of Evil. And I was just, I was just saying.
And Bart Sears was actually a very pivotal figure back then too, because he was the art.
Oh my gosh! Cool World came out in summer '92. I definitely didn't see Cool World at that time.
Yeah,
but
right.
I totally love Cool World.
Yeah.
And the idea of it being the creation, that's kind of why I'm always talking about the Mungoverse. I kind of model my like crazy head space as the Mungoverse.
Sure.
Where I've got this whole mess of characters and stories that are all mixed up, and it's going to take me years to tell them all. But one day they're going to have me make the movie. It'll be like Cool World.
Totally.
And he gets sucked in the paint in the artwork too. Mine's the opposite. The artwork that I do like starts spilling out into the real world.
Into the world.
It keeps happening to me, dude. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say that we're both kind of like drawn to art first here? Like you're mentioning Bart Sears as the penciler here. A lot of people think about writers first when they think about, oh, this is my favorite run, this is my favorite book.
I guess. I mean, there's definitely parts of that. Like, I will go after certain writers' runs of stuff, but I also will, like, I mean, I specifically started looking up 2 different artists last night because I've been downloading a bunch of CBZ files just because, like, I've got the comic itch, and so like I'm gonna scratch it in the cheapest way that I can. And so there's this guy Ramon Villalobos is a guy that I ran into him at Chico whenever I was doing promotion for my own book, the Walter book.
Yeah.
And so I've got a couple signed little pink pics from him, but like I love his style because it's kind of like. Do you know who Frank Quietly is?
Yeah, I almost brought over. I was just looking at my JLA 2, which came out in 1999 because I was flipping through going, hey, which is by one of my favorite writers, Grant Morrison.
Yeah.
Yeah, who, I'll tell you.
Works a lot with Frank
Grant Morrison is another guy who loves to like fantasize or experiment with what you can do to bring your ideas into the real world off the page. So I think that he was an inspiration to me. Like, back in the day, there was this this DVD series that I used to rent from Figuritos called Disinfo, So this was years and years before YouTube or anything like that. And he gave a talk where he talks about sigil magic. And he talks about the super sigil. So okay, there was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was the real good one. We all know it was the sequel. But let's say, so Grant Morrison talks a lot about that, and my favorite thing that he ever wrote was the Final Crisis. That's like my favorite. It's like a mini-series graphic novel, right? It goes deep. Let's just say it brings in the entire DC universe and kind of resets a lot of things, but it does it in a way that really, asks some really deep existential questions through the DC characters, right? So Grant Morrison, he is definitely, him and Alan Moore, both from the UK, right? They're also two of my favorites. So we were talking about Frank Quietly, though.
Ramon Villalobos, he is, he was an artist that very much in the Frank Quietly style. And for whatever reason, like, I've just kind of glommed onto, like, trying to find books that he's done. So, like, the other night I was just, like, searching out clickety-clacking on this guy. And another one called Trad Moore. I don't know if the name sounds familiar. He's
I think I remember Trad.
Right? Yeah. It's the strangest thing that got me, like, intrigued with his work, but it was like, I feel like it was a cover for a Howard the Duck thing that he'd just done recently, but I have it posted up in my room in there. But it's got all of this crazy shit happening with like squirrel versions of like Weapon X. And like,
interesting.
Just like, it looks like a weird, like, kind of effeminate version of Kraven the Hunter is like leaping across the screen, and like just all this crazy shit's happening. I'm like, what is it? So like,
there's a book called Strange Tales of Spider-Man. Have you heard of that?
I actually have a whole volume called Strange Tales, and it's like a bunch of indie comics dudes doing Marvel stuff.
Okay.
It's really cool.
Okay, and I could have the name wrong on that, but
there might be just a Spider-Man
Howard
one.
the Duck stuff in there. I'm gonna go look and see if Trad is involved in that, because it's the same kind of wackiness you're talking about.
Yeah. But he's done like legitimate stuff too. Like the comic that he did for Image was called like something about Luther Strode. But there's another one he did just recently called Super.
We're still running. Just want to make sure that we're still going here.
Yeah. Oh, it was called it was Silver Surfer Black was the Trad Moore one that looked notable that you'd probably be able to look up.
That sounds pretty metal too.
Yeah, he's got like a disease. It looks like creeping up his arm, like. So it's like maybe the end of Silver Surfer.
Oh, so you know a little bit more about this. So X Factor, X Force, Executioner's Song. Do you know if that would have been right in this era? That was definitely something that I paid attention to, where not many like events that crossed many titles really, like, I couldn't get my hands on them. But that Executioner's Song, that's that one with X Force.
That would have been
Magneto.
That's like 93 or 4.
Okay.
Because because that was after all the Image guys had bounced. Okay.
Right, because when I think of X Factor and X Force, I'm thinking Rob Liefeld. Like most of the books that I ever had of X Force, it was Rob Liefeld, and but I was just rereading those because you were saying about like the stuff up his arm. The whole thing about the Bishop returning from the future and Cable just gets destroyed by Magneto. Because both he and Wolverine have metal in their bodies, and as we all know, Magneto can manipulate. So he just totally destroys both of those guys. It's nice to take a character that people have known for a long time and change them in a way that makes sense for the character, rather than, hey, let's just throw a new costume, or, hey, let's have a few spider clones. That'll be fun, actually have like a change that makes sense to the growth of the character, or and I think even Spawn, like when he starts rotting and stuff, like it's part of the character's journey. It's not just done for the look of it.
Yeah.
And there's implications to the change, right? So I don't know if that plays into the Dark Surfer, but
Yeah. Well, this one is a funny one in just that, well, it's era specific, but I noticed that you might be able to see something at the bottom of the screen that Cyclops is not Cyclops.
What is he, Archangel? No.
No.
He's got two eyes.
He's got two.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what the fuck? Penciler and inker and colorist, guys. What is your deal?
I guess they were in it for the cable. They did not care.
Anyway, let's just get away from that sadness
and go all
and
the way
talk about
to
some of the 2099 business.
Yeah.
That was like pretty late in the year of 92, apparently.
Okay.
But still,
it's on the radar.
That's
these
definitely
days.
in the landscape.
But what's bringing 2099 back into the conversation now?
Well, Spider-Man 2099 has been kind of popping up here and there just because there's all kinds of multiverse Spider-Man business happening. Well, Terminator from that era.
Dark Horse.
Familiar with it beyond just like it being, kind of one of those, I don't know, 25-cent grabs that I got long ago. And it's got some Simon Bisley cover art, which is badass. Gotta love that mother. He's, definitely known for Lobo and Melting Pot. And
this would look great on a heavy metal cover. It's got that painterly look to it.
Yeah, he definitely did a lot of covers for heavy metal.
So Terminator, huge impactful thing for me too. Loved the original.
Yeah,
Terminator 2 more than
yeah.
Terminator 1. I think Terminator 1 I saw on TV and they might have cut out some good parts, so it didn't impress me. But Terminator 2 blew my mind. We watched that one over and over. Any thoughts on Terminator 2? They've just kept making more and more of them. There's a lot of lore there.
Yeah. Once you get something that's going to generate some dollars, it's hard to stop trying to make more money off of it. But, I mean, it definitely has some coolness to it. Let me see if there's anything worthwhile in here to note. Got this Predator ad on the back.
Oh, what?
And I'm pretty sure this is an ad for,
Kubert.
This is from Batman versus Predator, and they just crop Batman out.
I think you nailed it. I see a little bit of that cape right there.
I'm pretty sure that's it.
And
that's funny.
Yeah, we're always talking about the artist because we're artists too. Andy Kubert, legendary. I've got some really great Andy Kubert stuff I could have brought too.
Vince
He was very
Giorano. I thought this might have been John Wagner, but no, this is a different one. Whoa, check out this
look
like
at this gritty realism
crazy ass
here. Yeah, look at that.
Terminator with horns and shit. What's going on here?
And Liquid Terminator?
No, I think this is still.
The cop looked like the Liquid Terminator.
This is like, yeah, this is still. Well, look at this G'd out cop Terminator with the Uzi and MPK.
Well, before we kind of skip to...
Why does he bother having the, cop uniform?
It's fucking dope. Yeah, no one's going to fall for that. But maybe once...
Nice.
Once,
I'm loving these gangbangers blowing away the
loses his
Terminator.
Great action. Great comic booking right there, man. I love that.
Oh, and
These
snap.
sound effects.
Uh-oh. Well... That cop is not going down in the same way, fellas.
Oh my gosh. I'm just remembering the gritted teeth. Now, when I think about art from that style, this kind of gritted teeth, it definitely made it into my art.
Prevalent.
Everything that I was drawing at that era.
Just clenching.
I love drawing the gums. I would get the gums first, and then I would fill in the rest, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to have to jump us to kind of talking about what Image is up to now, but before we do that, Lay of the Land 1992, you're showing us a Dark Horse book. So there were some third-party publishers. I mean, I have some old R. Crumb comics, so there was always independent comics being produced. And then my dad's from Scotland, so I actually had some 2000 AD comics
Nice.
and some Judge Dredd stuff that like I've cherished all these years. So I was aware of there being other comics besides Marvel and DC, but maybe not so familiar.
At that point in time, I was still fairly young, so it was my comic buying tastes had not started to evolve to buying outside of that. I mean, Image was already kind of like foreign. Well, not foreign, but like, you know, totally new characters, totally, you know, yeah.
I wasn't like reading any Image books from day one, 1992. I wouldn't have been there, but I got so heavily into it from Wizard magazine, reading all the articles, and then, you know, I think it was a phenomenon to have these talented artists break away and do creator-owned, and I've been obsessed with that idea of creator-owned ever since, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely, they changed the landscape of comics, and it's still very much altered because of it. And I mean, Walking Dead wouldn't exist if the Image guys hadn't have, you know, broke out and done their thing.
Don't spoil it for me, but I just started, I never finished the graphic novels, and I'm not done with the show yet. I just started watching the last 2 seasons because, like, fuck, I have to know how this ends. And what's so funny is, like, before I watched the show, I was ahead of it on the graphic novels, and I kind of could see stuff coming, and then things wouldn't happen the same way as in the book. And like when they're in Alexandria, like, seems kind of like a totally different, you know, show compared to the books. Well, speaking of that, I brought in a couple other Image things that I thought were worth a nod. This is cool. Image did these Image firsts. So this is Southern Bastards was a recent one. And then this one here, Deadly Class. So Remender, this Deadly Class show is actually just came out on streaming.
Yeah, and, I've heard about it. I haven't checked it out, but I've heard things. I have a trade of the Southern Bastard I still have yet to read, but
love the artwork and the story on Deadly Class, and I think it's cool. There was a whole slew. I think that got a little oversaturated with teen comic-based stuff. There was like Umbrella Academy got a show, Deadly Class got a show, and they were even doing some other Marvel stuff. Runaways, yeah.
Gifted.
Well, Runaways was an Image book too, right?
Runaways is Marvel.
Okay, Runaways is... Okay, there you go. Well, okay, and then that was definitely one of the ones I was thinking of, is the Marvel one that came out that time. Here's a Scotty Young, I Hate Fairyland. So this is like another creator-owned thing that you probably wouldn't have got if there wasn't a publisher like Image. How would you describe how Image operates? If you're an artist, a creator, and you've got a book, and Image says, hey, yeah, we love your stuff, who does the distribution? Who does the printing? Does Image back you all the way, or do
pretty
you go
much
independent?
From what I understand, like, you don't get paid for the first book, essentially. Okay. From what the glean that I get from Image is like, you're putting it out there, and well, I don't know. I'm trying to think of how, like, in the long run, because yes, they're putting your book out, but like, it's the what you're actually getting from it is very much like you're getting it on the back end if there's anything to be got.
So they're the publisher, right? So Jeff Smith, he's publishing. It's not like Image is saying, hey, we love your story, we're going to buy it from you, and we're going to print this book. You're coming to them, and it's going to be underneath Image Comics, the label, but you're going to have to go and set up your own financing, and you're going to have to basically have your own company, as far as I understand. Like,
No, like, they'll print it out and everything, but like, promoting it and doing anything beyond actually putting it into a comic book form.
They'll get you into Diamond, but they're not necessarily going to do much more after that, right?
Yes.
Interesting.
And like, for your actual payment of getting, making the book is very minimal as well.
So we mentioned Walking Dead goes on to huge success. Jonathan Hickman, right? Is that Robert Kirkman?
Yes.
I always get those guys mixed up. Sorry, guys. But then here we go. Jeff Smith's Bone. This is another one that
Well, he was in cartoon books.
Yeah.
And then he switched over to doing it through Image.
So those YA graphic novels, or those what we think of as YA graphic novels, came out first before.
No, those actually, that's just like the collection. I mean, you can see some of them behind you actually.
Okay.
Is when he was putting him out through his like right behind you.
Yeah. Okay.
So cartoon
this is
books,
more the format that we're used to seeing.
Yeah. So yeah, Cartoon Books is his initial.
That's the
publisher.
Cool. Well, okay. So I'm just trying to get it straight because I wanted to bring out another one. This was not a big hit. But I love the artwork on this one.
Oh yeah, I remember the
brass,
crazy ass art.
Yeah, and a totally wild idea. You know, it was like the plot just serviced the cool aesthetics that they wanted. It was sort of cybernetically enhanced, biological organisms. But I just love the look of this, and again, I didn't have many books, and I used to just look through this one all the time. Loved it. And then here's another one that I thought was this is Trent Kuniga, right? So his book Creed. The reason I like to shout him out is because he's actually like someone who works in video games doing character design and concept art and that kind of stuff. And he's really helpful to aspiring artists on his YouTube. But this is the book that he started with, right? Mm-hmm. So like, how did he get his foot in the door? How did he get started? He had this really unique look to his art, which kind of like for me fuses this kind of like cartoony street art kind of style with comic books. You know, all of the stuff's really bold, and it's just really, really something that was different and really hip in my mind.
Kind of, it's definitely got some Vaughn Bodie in there. Feels like maybe even like Joe Mad, like it's got a little bit of
with the fantasy.
Yeah. Joe Madureira, like it's got a little manga to it too.
So shouts out to Creed. I had to throw it out there.
Definitely some, maybe even Muka too, like with the thickness of the line.
The thickness of the line, and then like you were saying, like I was definitely thinking Vaughn Bodie when I'm looking at these hands, and like that's why I say street art. It's also cool stories too, like really cerebral. It's like takes place in a dream world. It's kind of strange. So shouts out to Trent. Anything else that we can say about Image 30-year anniversary? Like we've gone through stacks and stacks, pre-Image books from the time. What would you say of as far as the impact on you as an artist and a creative person?
What's up?
What would you say as far as the impact Image has had?
The impact that Image has had. Well, definitely, showing that. To be honest, in the medium of comic books, the artist is kind of the really important part. Like, sure, the writing is like a very, a guiding force, but people will literally just buy the comics just for the art, which many people did. And, but I also believe that there should be more to it than that, which means, which is why about a year in, the Image guys were like, okay, we need to get some writers in here.
It's a lot to do everything. And then even just, as a young person, it takes a long time to figure out like how to reverse engineer what the heck you're seeing on these pages, right? As far as, I'd say like actually getting the internet like has helped me learn more about the whole process, even like in the last decade, learning more about, penciling, inking. What type of size and format? I wasn't drawing on 11 by 17 until really recently.
Yeah.
I was always drawing like little sketches on little printer paper, and never really thought, oh my gosh, if I want to be a proficient comic book artist, I'm gonna have to work bigger and then shrink it down. So a lot of this detail that you're seeing,
it's not actually like that. Yeah, it's a trippy thing about the thing. I was trying to draw like that, just like that. Or, that's probably not the greatest example because Mark Texeira is kind of like a little bit more free-flowing and whatnot, and he can, but whatever. And if anything, his might actually be that size. But
knowing when to use a nib, when to use a brush, and like all of these different tricks of the trade.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember if Mark Texeira actually had any image business. Now that I think about it, I think there was a union with Mark Texeira artwork. So
that one I actually know how to say. Teixeira.
Is it Teixeira?
I know a family called Teixeira.
Wow.
Yeah.
All this time.
No, I've gotten every other name this entire time wrong. So I thought I would just point out, like, hey, I know that. I know how to say that one. So again, from Eric Larsen to Todd McFarlane, Image has had a huge lasting impact, and it's evolved from its early era and what they did in 1992. It really shook the comics world, and to this day, right, Image is putting out cool stuff like Saga. Are there any Image books that you're reading now?
I don't know about like currently, but there's this one called Orkstain that is amazing. I don't know how you say his name. Is James either Stokoway or Stoko, but he's a awesome guy. Like that one Luther Strode one was another Image one. Like there's all kinds of just like they've been around freaking 30 years now. It's insane. Yeah. And but yeah, they're just up there with like, DC and Marvel now. They're huge.
They're definitely the number 3 player in the game.
Yeah, and it's a weird kind of thing though, like how I was explaining, because like they're the way that they publish things is kind of strange. I literally can't like say that I know it back and forth obviously, but like it's definitely it's a strange one for the creator. Like, like you're putting yourself on the line. Like you're not gonna get too much back on it.
They have a submissions page, and if you go to the Image Comics submission page, they're pretty quick to say like, we don't own any of these characters. We're not buying any stories. So if you think you're going to come to us with a story, or we're going to hook you, you're an artist. You think we're not going to hook you up with a writer and say, hey, you two would be great. Can we do this book?
Yeah,
they're not in that position of putting artists and writers together to make product. So you've got to, if you're an artist, and you're not a writer, and you need to find your writer on your own. So you need to come to them with your book
with your
already.
Thing. Yeah.
You basically need your book done.
Exactly.
And come to them when you are ready to print, right? Basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And then if you've got something really good, I do think having Image as your publisher can open a lot of doors.
Oh, for
get
sure.
you into the distribution lanes that are going to get your book read by more people.
Yeah.
Because they have a great reputation, but they're also willing to take a risk on new stuff that hasn't been done before. And they don't have like a single set, hey, we only do superhero books kind of idea. And they've got slice of life stuff, they've got horror, they've got everything in between. And they've stuck around for 30 years. So that's why I'll never be mad at the Image founders, because they inspired me to create comics in the first place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, they inspired me back then. They inspired, other people who have later inspired me again later in life after I've been old and crusty and kind of like fallen out of appreciation for things. So yeah, it's they're definitely very influential in the comics game.
We're gonna get cut off, so again, thanks to everyone who's listened to us. We're gonna always make sure that we talk about what we're doing on these shows because Harley's an artist, I'm an artist. We've always got cool stuff going. Hopefully we can do this again and I can pick your brain about your collection. Because we could do a whole special on video games, movies. We could talk about it all.
Yes, plenty of material in the Shadow Gallery for sure.
Awesome.
All right,
brother.
brother.
So Shadow Gallery, thank you for having us, Harley. We can keep going, but we're probably showing you more comics than we should have in the first place. But for our first episode, we really wanted to just hit you over the head with a whole bunch of stuff that we love. So let's do it again sometime.
Rock and roll.